So good morning, everyone. Good morning, good evening, based on where on the world you're watching this webinar from. My name is Natasha, and I head client servicing for the MBA service line at the LinkedIn and at the Red Pen. And today we also have with us Preeti Wadekar, who heads the MBA service line at the Red Pen. And today we're going to talk about an extremely interesting topic. We're going to talk about how to build your MBA resume and how to leverage LinkedIn during your business school application process. It's a topic that might seem easy. You may already be working on a resume, whether it's for a job change or whether it's for your MBA applications. You already have a LinkedIn account, I'm assuming, and you may be using it to connect with a professional network. But what we're going to talk about today is really how to optimize how you can make an impact both with your resume as well as with your online presence on LinkedIn. Before we start, what we will do is just give you some context and talk about who the Red Pen is. We are an educational consultant. We are based in Mumbai, India, and we help applicants, or we help students for a wide range of services, learning, starting from boarding school right up to MBAs and PhDs. We have more than 10 years of experience, and we help applicants for global universities, global colleges, boarding schools, what have you. We are a member of very prestigious global bodies that of international consultants, and that helps us gain insight into the applications and what you need to know about applying to just leading institutions across the world. Let's talk about the MBA service lines. The MBA service line is also a service line which offers consulting services for applicants to like the world's most selective business schools, honestly. You work typically with a team. We pride ourselves on our team-based approach, and we have consultants who are alums from prestigious global universities and also have a diverse work experience, whether it's from entrepreneurship to financial services, to understanding the world of public policy. There's someone who has experience working with clients across a variety of fields. Here's a few stats in terms of our success over the past year. And I think let's go into a little bit of detail here. So every year we have admits to the top 25 universities globally, whether those are in Northern America, Canada, Europe, Asia. This year was no different. This year, the year that's just gone past, we've seen admits to, again, the most selective universities, and that is something that we pride ourselves on. So let's talk about something. Let's start this session by talking about the basis of everything that we're going to talk about today. What you see in front of you are really the elements which are of importance to your MBA application across all the elements of your application. So whether it's the essays, whether it's the recommendation letters that your recommenders are going to send the school, whether it's your resume, your application form, the interview that you have either with an admissions committee member or with an alum, what you need to understand is that these are the 6 elements that are viewed across your application at the base. And really, what underscores your application is your academic potential. And this really speaks to and connects all the different elements of your application. And that is also going to be something that we're going to discuss as part of the resume building piece. But what admissions officers really want to understand is whether you have the potential to really go through and thrive in an academically rigorous environment. Then we're going to talk about work experience. We always advise applicants that they need to apply to business school when they're really ready, when they have an understanding of what they want to do, when they have some work experience, so that they're able to ground their ambitions in practical, real life experiences. We're then going to talk about goals. Goals are perhaps one of the most important elements that tie together various parts of your application. You need to think about how you're going to define your short-term goals, what you plan to do immediately post your MBA, and what you plan to do long-term. So what's your long-term vision? What is it that you see yourself doing once you have the theoretical background, the real-world experience, as well as, just the transformational environment of a business school? We then want to talk about demonstrated leadership. Now, demonstrated leadership is mostly centered around how you view impact. How do you see yourself as someone who is a change maker, okay, who leads people, who inspires people, who also is able to work efficiently in ambiguity, which is, something that we all know is part of, the professional world. Are you someone who has interests outside work? So your extracurricular activities, these need not necessarily be only volunteer work, but it could be passion projects that you pursue. Who are you when you are not doing what you do at work? Because that also gives a lot of insight into the kind of person you are, the values that matter to you, and really, what you see yourself engaged in meaningfully. Finally, we look at fit. And fit would indicate how you really see yourself as part of the school, its professed culture, the community that you're going to be a part of. All of these are important elements. These are elements that need to underscore every part of your application. So we're today going to talk about the resume, but be assured all of these factors will be a part of your resume as well. Today, we're sitting at, the start of July. At this point of time, ideally, if you're targeting round one this year, you will be engaging with schools. You would have attended information sessions. You will be putting together or doing some preliminary work on your application in terms of just understanding where you want to be. And most importantly, now is the right time for you to start putting together elements that are going to make up your resume. So what we're going to do really is assume that a lot of you have all these different parts of your application on your radar right now. So whether you're taking the standardized test or you're about to take it, whether you're thinking about your goals or you already know what you want to do, we're going to assume now that you have some visibility on all these parts of your application and the whole journey. And we're going to talk today about your resume, because today, where we stand, you have about 2 months to put together a really solid resume. So without further ado, let's talk about the MBA resume. And before I hand it over to Preeti, I think what I'm going to do is just give you a very brief introduction to, why the resume is such an important part of your application. You need to understand that, the MBA resume, the resume that you're going to put together and submit as part of your application, is really going to be at the heart of your application. There are 4 reasons why it is very important. And it is important because it provides an admissions officer. It's probably going to be the first document on their radar, and it's going to provide them with a very succinct summary of who you are as a professional. It's going to serve as a timeline that ties together all the different things that you're going to say in different parts of your application. A well-built resume and a very, efficient resume is going to be one that showcases who you are and allows them to look at you vis-a-vis, all the other applicants that they have in front of them. It's going to be something that you will have limited space for, but at the same time will need to demonstrate maximum impact on. And, it is going to be really, like I said, the basis it's going to be the first document that will be front and center, and all the other parts of your application will be evaluated with this being viewed in parallel. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Preeti to walk us through, the MBA resume.
Thank you, Natasha. I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. Good morning from a very soggy Mumbai to, I think, everyone joining us from I guess, all over the world. So we're talking about the MBA resume versus a job resume here. I think, many a times applicants, when they approach us, they send us their existing resume, which is a very job-centric resume. which is fine. But the difference here is, sometimes a job resume can be very technical. Let's say if you're in a very technical role, you're an engineer, you're in, a software engineer, or on the technical side or side of product development, then it can have a lot of technicalities. Many a times, you may not think so much about writing about an impact when you're putting down your experience. The chronological order can be different, right? So the MBA resume is different from a job resume. Okay, it is strictly one page. Okay, it cannot run into multiple pages unless it's an executive MBA resume, in which case also we recommend that not more than 1.5 to 2 pages. Okay. So an MBA resume has to strictly be in one page. If you have multiple things to kind of share and write, use sections in the application form, or use the other application components like letters of recommendation to highlight any critical or important projects or stuff like that, right? Experience, I think, a resume elaborate on job related skills, which is what I said, many technical an MBA resume has to, demonstrate leadership potential, soft skills for sure, community citizenship for sure. Community citizenship can also be highlighted in the application form, but the experience has to keep in mind when you're writing the experience section to think about potential recruiters, right? And you're writing the resume for someone who is not possibly from your field. An admission officer is possibly not going to be a product manager, or an entrepreneur, or someone from family business, may not be definitely not a private equity analyst, unless this is an ex alum of that business school, was a private equity, or an investment banker in the past and now in the admissions team. So that's very rare. So it should kind of position you for a potential position. And coming to the second bullet point, it basically, should position you as a potential business leader. Okay. We do have, a repository of resumes, which have always worked. We do not share past client resumes because we are bound by confidentiality. But over a period of time, since this is such a critical document, we have, we understand what role it plays in admissions and how it is to be crafted. My only point over here is, do not leave the resume as something on the side. And, usually people just focus on their GMAT/GRE or the essays. This is going to be probably the single most important document. And, you should also figure out your underlying career decisions based on how you want to project your resume when it's time for application. You can move to the next slide. Okay, so these are, I think, the 5 pillars, and I think Natasha has, really put them in very succinct pillars. So, we can kind of have a better understanding and break, the elements down. So what are we basically looking at, through the resume? Impact and result orientation. So every bullet point that you write, please do not start the bullet point with responsible for, okay? By the way, if I didn't say this earlier, please keep your questions coming in the Q&A box. We will take the questions at the end, but if you think of a question, please write it down. Post it in that box like right now. So impact, we're looking at impact at every bullet. So if you've written something that I did this, so what that you did it? What was the impact on that, on your project, on your team, on your, organization, your peers, your colleagues, your clients, your vendors? Think from that perspective. If even now you have about 2 months until round 1 application. So look at whatever you're doing even today, think about the impact of that, and then take, those career actions or, involvement in projects. Apart from responsible for, another bullet point, which, usually does not make much sense to me, is participated in. It doesn't really, okay, you participated, but what was your role in that participation, right? You have to think about that more clearly. Also, stay away from writing a whole dump of job responsibilities on the resume. Did this, participated in, responsible for. Some applications luckily give you space in the application form to write job responsibilities, which takes away that, that real estate from the resume, and you can use it, for more impact-driven results and projects and deals that you can write over there, okay? Second is demonstrated leadership at the college, career, and community level. We have to, you have to position yourself as a potential leader, okay? And leadership does not mean just managing people. So many applicants ask us that I'm not managing a team of people. At my level, nobody is. So how can I show leadership? Leadership is more about, your thought process, how you're putting yourself out there. I remember there's this video of Obama, which is going on LinkedIn. If anyone of you has seen it, he says that, you don't need to kind of be this super stellar employee and do something, absolutely crazy or absolutely amazing to get noticed. All you have to do is raise your hand when something needs to be done and say that I will take care of it. That's leadership, okay? Taking that initiative, solving problems, identifying which problems to solve, and making sure that what you're doing is impactful in terms of not just the business and the numbers, but also in terms of people. That's leadership, taking that initiative, having that thought process, right? Sorry, did we just lose the slide? Yeah, okay. Third is continued career progression. We need to see an upward trajectory in the, in the resume. If you switch jobs, have you just stayed flat from one organization to the other? Did you just change for money? I went from Bain to BCG in the same role, doing the exact same thing, covering the same industry, just different clients and more money. Think about it, okay? Usually it's always good if you have that step up. If you're switching, have a step up. Also make sure that you are in a role for a sizable amount of time. I usually recommend not changing roles below 2 years, because 2 years, you usually take to kind of just not only immerse yourself in the role and in the organization, but to kind of demonstrate, like you're taking things in for the first, 3 months, 6 months, and then you start projecting it out. So to create that impact, I believe you need to stay at an organization that much longer. But if the profile doesn't serve your post-MBA goals and it's not in that direction, of course, you need to change, right? That's a different discussion. MBA focused value proposition. Like I said, make this, don't make it too industry specific, right? It has to be industry specific, and industry focus is actually very good, especially if it aligns with the post-MBA goals, but don't make it too technical. Make it, impact driven, and explain as to how this is, how this is going to aid a post-MBA career. And if, recruiters who come to campus are basically, going to see this, how will they kind of perceive it? And usually get it read by, a third party. Can they understand it? Usually, we have a team of resume specialists only for this, and resume is something I think gets the highest level of attention in the application. It needs to. And last is a differentiated profile. We've already put down some examples of what can differentiate you. Of course, differentiation happens across all application components. But if there is something absolutely key, like, you are, let's say, you have a Visharad in music, in classical music, Indian dance or something, you can write those things over there. Another thing which I would say that, does not differentiate yourself is languages spoken. Many applicants write languages spoken, Hindi, English, and whatever else. It's, as an Indian applicant, the expectation is that you speak English, okay, because this has been a British colony, and unless someone is not speaking English, which they should definitely then bring out in the application, it is assumed that Hindi is a national language. It's assumed that you would be speaking. If not, then of course you can write that. You're like, I came from this part of the country where Hindi speaking is not very normal, but I speak that. Then please put languages spoken. But and people write about your native language, which is fine. But unless that is a really impactful bullet and there is nothing else of much impact to be written over there, it's not of much use. So even when you are putting your differentiating your profile, look at community activities and extracurriculars which are true to who you are, and make sure there is enough for you to write in them. Yeah, Natasha, you wanted to add something?
No, I was just also going to add to your point on language. I think another piece that I'd like to interject is, if you learn like French or German in college or, in school, but you've not spoken it for, a certain number of years, you may not be fluent in conversation, I would stay away from mentioning such languages, because, if you're not in touch with the language, if you're not fluent, and you have an interview with someone who say wants to talk to you in that language, it can be embarrassing because you've mentioned it, but it's not something that you're in touch with. So that's another piece around languages that you need to be careful about if you're going to represent a language either on your resume, because you want to show that you know a breadth of languages. Be aware that you should be fluent in that language. That's one part that I wanted to just add on over there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Preeti, you were going to add on something around the personal passions, please.
Yes, personal passions. I said that, schools are looking for quality over quantity. So we just need to make sure that, we are not trying to apply ourselves in all different ways and say that I'm this highly diversified applicant. Doesn't really work. Pick out those one or two things that really matter to you and stick to that.
Yeah.
That is what is, I think, valued far more. And taking that time out to go sailing, if sailing is your thing, or playing that badminton, or teaching someone some skill. If you're like, I have learned, guitar since I was a kid, and now I'm like teaching this on the weekends and also practicing, that has far more impact. That is because all said and done, I was at the AGAC conference 2 weeks back, and I keep saying this, but I think schools are looking for authenticity. They're not looking for, someone writing something because this is what they're looking for. They're not going in with a fixed mindset looking for certain things. This is not an engineering, law, or a medical entrance. So they're not looking, they're coming with an open mind. So it's better to be, very authentic and self-aware. Okay, next.
Yeah. Another piece I just want to add on to what you just said, Preeti, was in terms of impact. Sometimes when people start the process, applicants start the process, they come to us with a very genuine question saying that not everything I do or want to say has a quantifiable impact. So,
Yeah.
They struggle with that. And I think to that, what you need to ask yourself is, if you are going to put such points, then how many such points do you want in your resume? If everything you do does not have an impact, then we have a larger conversation. But, if it's just one point which really matters to you, but it may not be something that, has either yielded results as yet, because you may be in the process of, working on a particular project, then give an intermediate impact point, something that you can talk about until such time as you apply to the school. Or if it is something that absolutely does not have a quantifiable impact, but it's important in the scope of your role, and you want to talk about it because it colors a lot of the other impact points that you're talking about, yes, then it does have a place in your resume. But if every point, or if, majority of your points do not have quantifiable impact, then it's something that you need to review and see whether you want to keep on your resume or not. Yeah, Preeti. I'll move on, I think.
Yeah. All right. So what admissions officers want in a resume? A clean design with scannable sections. Like Natasha said, some may put your resume through an ATS as well. We do not know. That is not something which is visible to us, but that may happen. So, do not add, things like in a job resume, people usually try to game the system by, writing something in white and, writing in white ink so that in scanning, it kind of goes through. So don't do those kind of things. Quantifiable outcomes of actions wherever possible. And this is why, I like, applicants to think about an MBA application journey 2 years in advance. So you can make career choices, decisions, choose projects, and take career paths which are aligned to your MBA journey. You think ahead. And then whenever you are taking on a project, thinking of a career move, a transition, a change, a promotion, an industry change, job role, choosing one, if your employer presents you with 2 options, which one to go through. Once you know that, what your long-term vision is and, how an MBA is going to play into that, choosing, those things becomes easier, and choosing to work on projects where, you're like, I need to apply myself over here so that, I can quantify an impact on this. Otherwise, it's like, I'm doing I did a lot of things. I had a very busy day, but I don't know what output I had in the whole day because I was just answering emails. So you have to put that thought into the work that you do. Okay. If you sit today and say, now I want to kind of quantify the impact of what I did like 5 months back, that can be difficult. Okay. We cannot have so much memory. Also use your performance reviews. You can get some information and data from there, hopefully. But usually I say that, your resume, whether, and this is of course in an MBA context, but, putting my career coach hat on, I would say that, always also look at keeping, a resume current, like, usually keeping that, you know, as and when you are getting, information, you just update it on a monthly basis, so that all information is current and it's fresh. Analytical skills that demonstrate readiness for academic rigor. If you have an analytical profile, great. Many a times applicants have done analytical work, like, lead fundraising efforts, manage, help manage a balance sheet or P&L. But they're like, oh, because this is an ancillary part of my role, I just sort of helped someone in it. Why do I need to write about it? But that demonstrates readiness for academic rigor. So if you have that, which is why I say that, keep that running document, tracking what all are you doing, right? Soft skills that demonstrate fit with a particular community. This can be very difficult. So work with the resume specialist to kind of bring these aspects out, because you can say that I am, I'm a people person, I'm a team leader, I am collaborative, but you have to bring that out with a specific professional work example. So, we have a list of resume words which, we can share, and then, but you have to kind of, make sure that example exists. So you approach it through a show and rather than tell lens, right? Professional highlights in clear language, no jargons, and please do not use abbreviations.
I think one of the things that I'd also like to add on to what you just said, Preeti, was that, when we say no jargon, it's very difficult for a lot of people to move away from that, because traditionally when you're writing a job resume, you're writing it for someone who's in your field, and you want to use as much jargon as possible to give them a sense of, how familiar you are with a particular, area of work that you may be interviewing for. And, it's hard to break that habit, but you have to realize that when you put your MBA resume together, you cannot make an assumption about the person that's going to read your resume. So, ensure that it is really, really clean. And, I would in fact say just put a sign above your desk saying no jargon. That's probably something that I would recommend that everyone does when they're putting together their MBA resume. So with that, yeah, true.
So building an effective MBA resume, I think, what works and what doesn't. We've already spoken about single page. Use consistent language. If you are using AI to write your resume, be very careful. Okay. Schools are, most schools are saying that they discourage the use of AI. Many are using resume writing tools. So be very careful about this. Okay, that human element as of this stage in the application process cannot be, overlooked. So be very careful if you are. You can of course use Grammarly, put it through like a spell check and all of that. Make sure there are impact statements. Also, this is a business school resume, so be conservative. Don't add these pictures, colors. Also, don't bold, things a lot. It's like, telling someone that you are not probably paying that much attention to my resume. So let me just draw your attention to what I think you should be seeing in the first place. So mostly don't do that. A few words here and there have been, put in bold, which is kind of fine. There's no black and white over here, but too many bold underlines throughout the whole resume can just, throw the whole visuals out of whack. Also remember that, similar to a job application process, admissions officers are looking at hundreds of resumes. Once that whole, once the submission deadline is done, and, they get all the paperwork. So we have to make sure that, the most important bullet points are at the top, because they will scan it, right? They will scan it. And so the most impactful statements have to be at the top. Put it in a descending order. Key milestones, in your career, mention that if you went from, don't just write the most current title. If you went from an analyst to a senior associate, just mention those dates as well. Use simple language. Do not use bombastic language, and don't make it too wordy. Stick to, what you need to say. Don't use abbreviations, don't use jargons, and don't write this whole responsible for, over and over again. And like I said, business school conservative, hiring format. So pictures, colors, and all is fine. Someone has asked in the Q&A box, can I put hyperlinks? Yes, you can put hyperlinks because it's a digital application. If they're able to click on the hyperlink,
be mindful.
But but make sure that hyperlink is not running into like 3 lines. That hyperlink is short, abbreviated, and you're directing their attention to something which is really important and like a key publication. If you're like, I wrote 2 lines in, an important publication, it's fine. You can stay away from that. Yeah, Natasha.
I would avoid using hyperlinks for don't use hyperlinks for the company name, directing it to the company page. That's overusing hyperlinks. But if you're going to have hyperlink to articles that you may have written, contributed to, be quoted on, that's fine. But again, be mindful of it so that, if you have too many hyperlinks, no one's going to, spend their time clicking through each. So make it really, really impactful. And the second piece that I was going to add to is when we talk about highlighting words or phrases, if you're going to highlight something, highlight something that cannot be misinterpreted. So at the most, I would say, personal judgment, but I would say that only highlight, your designation, for example, or the list of designations that you want to put for yourself. Avoid highlighting achievements, avoid highlighting, like the figure amount, like the impact that you want to quantify. Those are things that you should not, because those are open to interpretation. And, like Preeti said, they may not really be received in the spirit in which it is intended, because there is no clear indication why you're highlighting those terms. So if you're going to highlight something, I would say stick to highlighting at the most your position, the maybe to indicate like the growth that you've had or the promotions that you've had, but nothing beyond that, and avoid highlighting any phrases. So I'll move on, Preeti.
Cool. Okay, next page. So 5 tips to, I think, optimize your resume. Some of this we already repeated. Some of which we already said, so not repeating them. Provide hyperlinks to your LinkedIn profile, please. That's very important. Many applicants miss this. Also, when we are working with our applicants, we not just help on resume, but we also help on LinkedIn profile. And this webinar is going to cover some of the LinkedIn tips as well. LinkedIn is not officially a part of your application, but we are not delusional about the fact that admissions officers are possibly not Googling your name when they, put you through a background check, or, even a background check, which is, post admission. And even maybe a last sanity check before they send out that offer letter, that let's see if everything is consistent. If you're like writing in your application that, I want to join, a social impact firm, post my MBA, but all you're doing is following a bunch of Ps and VCs on your profile, then that can send, 2 conflicting signals. So lots of LinkedIn tips coming up as well. So we'll leave it for that. Create distinct sections for work experience, education, certifications, and additional information. This is usually a format which works. This is a kind of format which we use. Of course, there is a lot more to this as well. So don't take it just as it is. If you guys just email us at team.mba@theredpen.in after this webinar, we're happy to share, an example resume template with you at no additional charge. Okay. Some of you are already our clients, so you're already, taken care of. Keep everything to single page, not a single line over just one page. Okay. Show certifications and demonstrate your ability to take on, the academic rigor of the program. For certifications, many people who come to us also ask, can I do this Coursera certification? Can I do this MOOC? Do not show it, do it just to impress someone. You do not think that, an application decision will entirely swing in your favor because you've taken 4 additional certifications. Do it to strengthen an already strong profile and to demonstrate strong interest in your post-MBA goals, especially if you're looking at a career transition. But if you are a private equity analyst or an associate on a pre-MBA track, and you already are working at a bulge bracket, investing firm, if you already are doing a lot at your firm, in terms of scale and scope and complexity, then doing, some absolutely, related investing, course that Wharton is offering on on Coursera is not really going to matter. If you have a tech profile, if you're like, I already know this programming language and I'm supplementing it with these programming languages because, we are going more and more digital with the penetration of AI and, I want to be a product manager, great, do that. Then that sort of supplements that and shows deep demonstration, in what you're doing, okay? I also encourage folks to take on more pro bono consulting or pro bono projects to add experience in line with your post MBA goals. Okay. So if something gives you experience, but they are not paying you, that's fine. Okay. So a lot of pre-MBA internships are very popular, but many people do that, after they have received an admit and up until the time that they go to business school, they do like a 3-4 month short pre-MBA internships to kind of, just once they land on campus, then, they can network with recruiters and say that I have experience in my post-MBA goals if I'm looking at a career transition, okay? Use additional information section to highlight community, citizenship, some of your passion projects and, your leadership, profile outside of your work as well. Many a times essays will give you that opportunity to write about that as well. For example, a booth essay will ask, we want to know who you are outside the classroom, you have a lot of space to write that over there, then you don't need to stress out about resume. So this is another thing for every application. You may need to tweak the resume a little bit to move certain sections of the resume. If they're already covered in the essay, don't repeat it on the resume. Don't repeat things of the resume on the essays or LORs or everything. Some of the sections can be moved to an application form. And in which case, you again get some free space on your resume. Another very important thing I would say is, if you've already worked on your resume, for example, you're working with a consultant or you're working on your own, you worked on your resume and your resume is ready. And you're like, now I'm done with my resume. Now I only have to figure out the rest of the application components. Please revisit your resume before application. Okay, a week before your application, re-look at the resume that you already worked on and make additions to critical projects or, anything that you already have, worked from the time that the resume was updated up until the time of application. So make sure it is absolutely relevant and current, most current version with most current information.
And at the very minimum, you need to check facts and figures. Figures may have changed, your impact may have scaled up. So, at the very minimum, what you should be checking is the figures that you've mentioned everywhere. So I'll move on, Preeti, now.
Yeah. All right. So references for resume content, I think you can, performance appraisal discussions. I think I've already spoken about this. Company dashboards, published research, college magazines or newsletter, degree certifications. So these are some of the additional sources apart from the work that you already done to kind of look at this. Also, what I would do is I would also share resume with, let's say, a senior, a supervisor, and kind of just get their feedback as to, do you think this is impactful enough? People also share it with admissions officers. Sometimes, in the networking session, they would follow up saying that I attended your event, it was very good. Can I get some feedback on my resume to see, demonstrate? These are the things why I think I am a great fit for your school. What do you think? In the AGAC conference, multiple admissions officers said to us that, we would rather hear from applicants before they put in the entire effort, in the application of time, money, resources. It's better that we hear from them before and we're able to analyze or assess their profile and just tell them if they're a good fit for the school given their post-MBA goals or not, right? So take that opportunity to have a very nicely, well done, professionally polished resume as, as a hook to kind of, also have those conversations with admissions officers and engage with them in a very meaningful way prior to your applications, okay? Yeah. Soft skills to reflect on. I think we already covered a lot about this. A diverse resume, is always that demonstrates, a few or, almost all of these skills is always, welcome, right? Because they're looking for business leaders who can apply themselves in different ways, but that does not mean you have to be everything to everyone. Focus on which of these are your core skills and, enhance that, right? If there was a very critical deal that you worked on, then highlight those teamwork and negotiation skills, right? If you are someone who's working across, on cross-border transactions, highlight that global experience and diversity and understanding of cultural nuances, in your professional landscape. Stakeholder management, if you're managing multiple parties, right? If you're, internal, peers and colleagues and, clients and vendors, that demonstrates that, how you are managing stakeholders in a fast changing environment in creative ways, such as this, and this. So give those examples. So these are some of the things to kind of reflect that, do I have an example over here? Is there something I can do in the next 2 months to kind of showcase an example? You'll think up differently at your workplace once you know that these are the things I would like to reflect on my resume. Yeah. Anything to add, Natasha, to this one?
No, I think you're right. Just look at what resonates with you the most, but these are distinct areas that you need to structure your reflection on, because otherwise it can be overwhelming. So I'm moving on, Preeti.
Yeah. These are some of the verbs which are, I think, very popularly used. So I would recommend if you, the recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel. But if you kind of don't want to go through the whole thing, just take a screenshot of this one slide is what I would say. These are verbs which, are some of our favorite ones across resumes when we've analyzed those. So use some of these. I've already said don't use responsible for and, did this and participated in, not these passive, observed or, those kind of things. It's more about action verbs. And these are, I think, ones which we think are, which put you on the forefront, where you seem across and, a leader who takes initiative. Like,
I think another thing, Preeti, that I'm going to add to that is sometimes we tend to overuse certain words or verbs, right? So you might say led a particular initiative, but you could mean many other things, right? You could be building it from scratch. You could be, adding on to or refining a particular model. There are many ways to present the same point. So I think, look, another reason why I would say that take a screen grab of this is when you're thinking about how you're positioning a particular soft skill, there may be synonyms which could better represent what you want to say. And it's important to know that, it's important to have that diversity of thought. And it's important to also distinguish between various elements. So like I said, led could be built on, it could be created, it could be refined. So you need to really think about what is it that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
So I'll move on, Preeti.
Yeah. So these are some of the examples that how can you transform some of the statements, and these are very anecdotal, right? I mean, so don't just kind of take them and say that, oh, this is how I can. These are in context of certain specific applicants that we have kind of used and how we have changed them. So you can look at this. Prepared and presented sales data can be changed to conceptualized and executed a targeted sales campaign that yielded a significant increase of USD so and so or whatever. Also, in terms of monetary values, usually use dollars, right? If you worked on, let's say, a project in Europe and a project in Singapore, and both have, different, I would say, change that to a US dollar amount so that it's consistent. Also use, you can use a dollar sign. No one is going to say, is this a Singapore dollar? Is this a US dollar? Is this a Hong Kong dollar? No one is going to kind of say that, right? So you can use the dollar sign. It's understood that it's a US dollar. You do not need to mention on the resume, this is exchange rate used, not required, okay? Attain the opportunity to mentor newly inducted team members during their first month, versus acted as a mentor to 4 newly hired team members, ensuring a smooth transition into the organization during their first critical month. So what, again, focusing on that impact, okay? If you have, worked at a peer level, in terms of certain projects where where your impact has also been key, using the word co-lead or co-led, like you see in the second examples, is absolutely fine, okay?
And I think, also stay away from very wordy statements where had the opportunity to, attained the opportunity to. These are words which don't really add value when you have very limited real estate. So instead of saying, in the third point that attain the opportunity to mentor, you can just say acted as mentor. You can just say mentored. Look at opportunities to really ensure that you are impactful by reducing the amount of, I would say fluff, but, by reducing the amount of time that you need to say the same thing, you know. And I think the first two sentences are very important because in the first sentence, we're literally not giving any impact at all. And you need to be more mindful about how you represent that. Whereas in the second, the second statement, you're going too much into the weeds. Like you're literally describing different parts of the execution where you prepared collaterals, you coordinated with management. Whereas what you want to do is really be able to step back and give a far more comprehensive overview of your responsibilities. Yeah. So Preeti, I'll move on to the next slide then.
Yeah, so we're running over time, so I'm going to wrap it up before we move on to the LinkedIn piece. So check your facts, be accurate. This is very important. Make sure that, it's maybe your supervisor writes a certain dollar value in the recommendation and you're writing something else. In the essay is a certain amount, resume says something else. So check those facts very clearly. Focus on impact, not job descriptions, repeating that again, and emphasize on soft skills and analytical abilities. A resume goes a lot beyond, what we are attempting to even cover in this webinar. So if you need a review of your resume, please contact us. This is a document you don't want to kind of, just take it lightly. So just get a sort of a, gut check done on your resume, not just with us, maybe with any consultant. Or a supervisor, but make sure that it's a document which is not fabricated. At the same time, it is really impactful. So I'm going to hand it over to Natasha for the LinkedIn piece.
Yeah, and I see that we have questions, Preeti. So I'm sure you're going to scan them while we're speaking about it. So we'll address all of them at the end of the LinkedIn section. So.
Yeah, we can do them. Or I can, if there are resume questions, I can take them now as well.
So I think one is in terms of, can you share your email ID where, participants can write if they want to get a copy? Yeah.
Yeah, so let me do this. Let me just quickly take some of the resume questions and the ones which I can address directly, I will just type the answer out. Yeah. So does the format of MBA resume differ from US, UK, Australia, South Asian countries? Very good question. More than, country-wise differentiation, I would also say that many schools have their own specific format. I don't know what Rotman's application is going to be this year, but Rotman has a specific format of their own. European schools have a specific format. We do not help, applicants with, formats for different schools. They have to kind of format it in that particular, in the particular school format. But using the school format is actually good because then schools are able to provide a consistent, resume format across their candidate pool to recruiters who come to campus. So check school-specific application requirements more than country-specific, okay?
European schools differ far more. With the US, you might have mostly the standard format, but, there are some schools like Sloan, which might say that they'd want, the education section first and then professional experience. But like Preeti said, it's important to check individual school formats just so that you ensure that the points on your resume get the attention that they deserve and you're not missed out because you represented something not in the way that the school wanted it represented. So that's perhaps the most important piece to remember.
Correct. Also, how do we display co-work? The impact statement applies to the work of the team, but I have substantial contribution to it. I think I answered that. You can say that I co-led. You can say that you co-led and that's...
Or you collaborated.
Or collaborated.
Yeah, if that's overstating it. So yeah.
Right. Cool. Also, does the community service take into account every country and does it have the same weightage in every country? So our, applicant pool is usually geared towards US, European and Canada schools. So I cannot say much about, schools in, let's say, Australia and New Zealand or rest of Asia, not as much, maybe just INSEAD, Singapore. But they are looking at a holistic application for MBA and community services, mainly community citizenship. how are you making a difference in society and your communities just beyond yourself? Because that's what they want. A business school is more about, how, the community, and they want to see how are you going to contribute to the community, when you land on campus. So I would give it equal weightage. Um, do we know what top 10 schools within the United States have school-specific resume requirements for the application? Mostly top 10 schools don't have a specific resume. US schools, at least top 15 ones, have not kind of said, this is our resume, just come to
I
it. So
mean,
most of the
barring
time
Sloan.
we have given has worked. Our resume template has worked.
I mean, off the back of my hand, I would probably say just Sloan, but I will also ask you to always check every year, always check every school's website, because if there are minute changes or minute instructions, those will be available on their platform every year. So it's always a good idea to check. What we are telling you is based on experience, but use that, always have that final check of looking at the website. So yeah. So Preeti, with that, I'm going to move on to the LinkedIn section, and we can, address questions as we go. So what I really want to talk about today is just looking at, the importance of LinkedIn as a part of your process. A lot of applicants that we work with, when they start out, may be using LinkedIn only to connect through in-mails with alums and, with people that they really want to get more information from. And, it is that, yes, but it is so much more than that. And what the tips that we're going to talk about today are really going to help you be more effective in making that connection. Sometimes it's not just the in-mail that you're sending to people, but it's also about how you're engaging with a larger community within LinkedIn. So with that said, let's talk about why you need to look at your LinkedIn profile as you're preparing to apply to business school. And this is regardless of whether you're applying in this cycle, or, you're planning to apply maybe a year, 2 years down the line. You need to remember that, LinkedIn is really an extension of the professional brand that you're putting out. Okay. Who are you as someone who is working in a particular field? What is your understanding of, or what is your knowledge of the subject matter? Are you a mentor? Are you someone who puts out content that really helps others as well? These are factors that you really need to think about when you look at reviewing your LinkedIn profile. You need to remember that, LinkedIn is not going to substitute your resume when, it comes to admissions officers scanning through your application, but it does serve as a point of reference in terms of who you are outside of the picture that you're drawing for them in your application, right? So if there are, on the negatives, if there are things like off-color jokes, or you may be saying that you support a particular cause in your application, but you may have put a comment on another post which shows that you have a completely antithetical view. It can also be a lie scale. You may say that I ideated this particular, project or this particular company, and in your LinkedIn, you may have put up a post congratulating someone on starting that particular company. So you need to understand that your LinkedIn really serves as a check for a lot of the information that you're providing on your resume at the very minimum. And, in a more broader sense, it's also going to give them a sense of how you engage with others when you're not being monitored at a particular point in time for admission. You can also look at your LinkedIn profile as really an extension of your network. What is important is how are you connecting with individuals? It's not really a matter of, sending a LinkedIn email and then, expecting people to respond to that. You may find that you have a very low hit rate, when you look at people who respond back to your emails. So when you're looking at LinkedIn for networking opportunities, it's also about the kind of presence you have on the platform. And therefore, it is important for you to really flesh that out, LinkedIn is also an important source of business school research, whether it is engaging with specific individuals or it's following schools' LinkedIn pages, or you may be following maybe the clubs that a particular business school may have as a precursor to engaging with some of the individuals or the officers within those clubs. It's also an important source of industry engagement. So if you are someone who is in a particular field and you're also using your LinkedIn platform to become more deeply involved with the kind of trends that a particular industry has, maybe you're reposting a certain trends that you find resonate with you, that connect with some of the interests you have at work, and you're sharing that with a larger community. You're also using it to engage with maybe senior leaders that you admire. You may be following their pages. You're looking at them as influencers. These are ways in which you can really flesh out who you are on LinkedIn, so that whether it's an alum who's responding to your connection request, or whether it's an admissions officer, anyone who's looking at your LinkedIn gets a sense of who you are outside of the of what you've written on an email or what you said on a resume. There are 5 ways in which you can optimize who you are on LinkedIn. And I will say that, these are perhaps the most visible ways for you to amp up your profile. So the first thing will be to look at your banner, which is the part behind the picture, as well as your profile picture. If you're looking at a profile picture, my, the broadest advice I can give you is that it needs to be professional. Your face and up to your shoulders needs to dominate maybe 3/4 of the space. Ensure you have a clear background so that you are visible. Do not put up group pictures. Do not put up pictures of you on vacation. Do not put up pictures where part of your face is obstructed, such as, with dark glasses or with a hat, for example. So these are ways in which you can really be visible and, show your face to the intended audience. When you put up a banner, it's a good idea to think about how you want to use your banner space. If you are an entrepreneur, you can perhaps put up something that your company represents. If you are someone who may be working for a larger organization, but you want to portray something about your value system, you can also use that banner space to create a banner that represents the values you stand for, or some of the important community citizenship activities you're a part of. There are a lot of creative ways for you to do this. And I would always say that, if we're sitting today on the 1st of July and you still have 2 months before you put in an application for people who are looking at it this year, you can still use platforms like Canva, where you can play around with ideas. There are ready banner templates, there are ready profile picture templates available, and really find something that fits your vibe and who you stand for professionally, what you stand for. The second tip I would always give anyone who's looking at, reviewing their LinkedIn profile is to look at your headline and your summary. Here's an opportunity for you to really talk about your skills or talk about your interests or your impact in a very different way from what you've done on the resume that you're sending to school. So I've given you a couple of examples. I'm sure you're going to see these individuals as you scroll through different websites or different school-related research pages on LinkedIn. But, think about who you are. Avoid avoid terms which don't really mean anything. So if you're going to talk about yourself as, a financial wizard or an evangelist, these are terms that you need to tone down on and really use the headline space to talk about who you are, what you represent, and maybe one thing that someone who's going to interact with you professionally should know about you. When you use the about space, when you talk about your summary, there are ways in which you can make this really very effective. You can use the space to talk about key skills that you have. And, you can be a little creative over here. So I've given you an example where someone says that, I'm a storyteller at heart, and I love to look at content in a particular way. There are ways in which you can talk about skills which mean something to you, which are broader in scale and scope, which you may not do on your resume, either for lack of real estate or because they may not necessarily correlate with the impact statements that you're representing over there. A good opportunity to have, and this is especially relevant for someone who's maybe thinking of an MBA a little further down the line, is that look at the featured section. Look at the featured section, because this is a great opportunity for you. And, I'm going to reference the comment someone had put up earlier about hyperlinks. It's a good feature for you to really talk about things that you've done in a lot of depth. You have the opportunity to use pictures. You have the opportunity to write something which is more long form content and then represent it over here in the featured section. So rather than having multiple hyperlinks on your resume, you anyways have a hyperlink to your LinkedIn profile. That is the link most admissions officers are likely to click on. So use the featured section on LinkedIn to really give some like a glimpse or be a little creative with what you want to represent that you've done, Look at leveraging skill endorsements. Now, LinkedIn does have a feature where you can talk about the key skills you have, and peers, colleagues, people who have interacted with you professionally can endorse you without having to write perhaps, a full-fledged endorsement for you. They can just click on those skills and say, yes, this is someone who I feel has the skill. But what you need to do is, if you're looking at the skills section on LinkedIn, ensure that you're using it more meaningfully. What you should not have is a laundry list of 30 skills, of which, 15 may be making PowerPoint presentations, creating MIS, understanding MS Office. These do not add value to who you are. And you might find that those are the skills, unfortunately, which get you the most endorsements. So when you are going to use the skills section on LinkedIn, pare it down, have maybe 5 to a maximum of 7 or 10 skills that you want to represent over there, and then use those to gain skill endorsements. Finally, the piece which is most important is growing your network. A lot of what you've done in terms of beefing up your profile may not land the way you wanted to if you don't have a network that you can engage with. So look at engaging with individuals who are not just passive observers on LinkedIn and who may be using it to update either a job change or to check other people's profiles, but really engage with a network who is active, who is responsible, who believes in community citizenship. When you do that and you become more active, you will find that people will respond to requests to connect. You will find that people will start responding to your emails because you're more mindful of the content that you're putting out. You're also engaging more and providing opinions on professional matters that really resonate with you. What you should avoid, though, is growing your network by commenting on posts that may belong more on Facebook or other platforms rather than on LinkedIn. So whenever you're going to comment on something, whenever you're going to provide an opinion or engage with a poster, always ensure that you've thought through what you want to say, you will be able to engage. And if they respond to you, you are able to connect with them again on a particular post. So connect with a larger group of people who are also active and see the platform as a meaningful way to really connect with others. I think, the LinkedIn section might seem very succinct at this point, but it is also about just putting your LinkedIn profile in review and ensuring that your LinkedIn profile captures your value proposition of who you are, what matters to you in the broadest sense possible. It's about forming connections and really initiating conversations. By initiating conversations, you will start growing your network. You will find people, you will find your tribe, and they will start engaging with you and connecting with you and really giving you access to more and more information that they connect with and post online. Use LinkedIn to create, use LinkedIn to share. These are two very important pieces. If you're going to create content for LinkedIn, ensure that it is content that you really believe in and you're able to engage with others on. Do not post because it's a controversial opinion and you just want to solicit views. Do not create if it's not adding value to who you are and what you stand for. Secondly, share insightful content, because when you share content, you are also showing your audience what you stand for. And, it's always good to repost, but with a personal thought, so that, you really putting out there what you want to your audience to take away from. Another thing that I'll also mention is that we do have another, LinkedIn webinar that we have done last year, where we also go into a lot of detail around how you can work on each individual section. So what we'll do is, I think we will post it in the chat for everyone so that you can look at linking to that webinar as well. So it's a good idea for you to go through that webinar and talk about how you can use LinkedIn in a far more detailed way. And I think, yeah, the link's up already. So with that, I think let's come to any questions that we may not have answered so far. I think there is some stuff on LinkedIn. So here we have a question around, is LinkedIn the only professional app, or are there any other apps that students need to keep in mind? Now, I think the thing with apps is that, they're constantly evolving. You will find more apps that, that may come up, just in the course of this webinar and your application. However, what you need to keep in mind is LinkedIn is a platform where admissions officers will also have the most presence, where schools will also have the most presence. So it is important for you to check whether there are other platforms that you'd want to put your social presence up, your professional social presence up, but LinkedIn needs to be the primary source which is on your radar.
Yeah, and we had also conducted a detailed webinar with Stephanie Kelly from Pretty Cool Coaching, where she had spoken about, how MBA aspirants can use LinkedIn to complement their application and create a very strong professional profile online on this professional networking platform. So the link has been shared in the chat box. So I recommend that, everyone just watch that as well.
Okay, so I think we have, oh, great. Thank you, Puneet. Thank you for that comment. Yeah, I think we've answered everyone's questions, and thank you for giving us your Saturday morning and engaging with us on this webinar. You can connect with us even post this webinar. If you have inquiries, you can reach out to us at team.mba@theredpen.in. And if you want to just engage with us long term and you want to know, we put out a lot of content on social media. So you can follow our LinkedIn page, you can follow our YouTube channel, and look at engaging with us. Of course, we love hearing from people. So, it's always best to reach us over email. So that's team.mba@theredpen.in. Yeah.
I'm just gonna post it in the everyone chat. Just so that team.mba@the yeah, just write to us over here. We monitor the account. It's not a ghost account. We monitor this account very closely. So all of your queries will be responded. And just whoever needs the resume template, we just want to kind of blast it to everyone and spam everyone. But so if you need it, please send us an email on this link, and someone from our team will definitely share it with you.
Great. Thanks,
Okay.
Preeti.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Natasha.
See you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.